Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Ashford, Tennessee. My name is Megan Holt. I'm 28 years old, and I am raising a child that isn't mine. A child his own mother threw away like he was nothing. I need you to hear every word of this, because what my sister did to her own son, what she did to me, still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Let me take you back. I was never the exciting sister. I was the one who showed up, the one who paid her bills on time, the one who worked as an administrative assistant at a small insurance office in downtown Ashford, filing claims, answering phones, making just enough to keep my one-bedroom apartment warm in winter. I didn't travel. I didn't post beach photos. I didn't have a boyfriend. My life was small, and I was okay with that. I had my routine, my quiet evenings with a book and a cup of tea, and I had my peace. My younger sister, Brooke, was the opposite of peace. Brooke was 25, beautiful, reckless, and completely allergic to responsibility. She had a son named Caleb. He was 10 years old, thin as a wire, and had been battling severe chronic asthma since he was 3, the kind that lands you in the emergency room at 2 in the morning. The kind that requires nebulizer treatments, daily inhalers, monthly specialist visits, and a mother who actually pays attention. Brooke didn't pay attention. She never had. She'd leave Caleb with neighbors, with our mother before she passed, with whoever would take him so she could chase the next thrill, the next boyfriend, the next party. And every time I brought it up, every time I said, "Brooke, he needs you to be present," she'd roll her eyes and say, "Relax, Megan. He's fine. Kids are resilient." He wasn't fine, and he wasn't resilient. He was a little boy with dark circles under his eyes who flinched at loud noises and carried his inhaler in his pocket like a soldier carries a weapon. He was surviving. That's not the same thing as being fine. It was a Thursday in October. I remember because it had been raining all day, the kind of cold, sideways rain that makes your bones ache. I was in sweatpants eating leftover pasta, watching the news. My phone buzzed. Brooke. "Hey, I need to drop Caleb off. Just for tonight. Something came up." I didn't even have time to respond before the knock came. I opened the door and there he was. Caleb. Standing on my welcome mat in a thin jacket, a Spider-Man backpack hanging off one shoulder, his chest wheezing so loud I could hear it over the rain. Brooke was already halfway back to the car, a black SUV I didn't recognize, idling at the curb with some man behind the wheel. "Brooke," I called. "Wait, what's going on?" She turned, barely, rain running down her face like she was in a music video. "I told you, just for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow." "He's wheezing. Has he had his nebulizer treatment today?" She waved her hand. Actually waved her hand. "He's got his stuff in the bag. You'll figure it out. You're good at that." And she got into the car, and the car pulled away, and the taillights disappeared into the rain like 2 red eyes blinking shut. I looked down at Caleb. He looked up at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that broke me open. Not surprise, not confusion, just quiet, tired acceptance. Like he'd been left before, like he expected it. "Hey, buddy," I said, my voice cracking. "Come inside. Let's get you warm." Before I tell you exactly what Brooke did next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel. Tomorrow came. Brooke didn't. I called her. Voicemail. I texted, read receipts. No reply. I called again, and again, and again. 3 days passed. 5. A week. I kept Caleb home from school that first Monday because his breathing was so bad I was afraid to let him out of my sight. I drove him to urgent care at 7 in the morning, sat in a plastic chair holding his hand while a doctor I'd never met adjusted his medication and looked at me like I should already know the dosage. "Are you his mother?" the nurse asked, clipboard in hand. I opened my mouth, closed it, looked at Caleb. "She's my aunt," he said quietly. Then, even quieter, "She's the one who's here." That sentence hit me like a freight train. On day 10, Brooke finally called, not to check on Caleb, not to ask about his breathing or his school or whether he'd been eating. She called to tell me she was in Miami with someone named Derek. She sounded happy, loose, like she was on her second cocktail. I just need a little more time, Meg. You don't mind, right? You're so much better at this stuff than me. Brooke, he had an asthma attack on Tuesday, a bad one. I didn't have his insurance card. I didn't have his. It's in the front pocket of his bag. Megan, relax. I'll send money. She didn't send money. I stood in my kitchen after that call, phone still warm in my hand, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something heavier, something that tasted like dread, because I suddenly understood that this wasn't temporary, that just for tonight was a lie Brooke told herself so she could sleep, and that the little boy asleep on my couch with a nebulizer mask pressed to his face had just been abandoned by his mother. I had no idea that the next few months would nearly break me and that they would change everything I thought I knew about love. The first 3 months were survival, pure, clumsy, exhausting survival. I learned Caleb's medication schedule by writing it on index cards and taping them to my refrigerator. Albuterol inhaler, every 4 to 6 hours as needed. Fluticasone, morning and night. Nebulizer treatment, twice daily when symptoms flared. Peak flow meter readings, logged in a notebook I bought at the dollar store. I Googled everything. I called the pediatric pulmonologist so many times the receptionist knew my voice. I rearranged my entire apartment. Caleb got my bedroom. I slept on the couch. I bought hypoallergenic pillow covers, an air purifier I couldn't afford, and new sheets that didn't smell like dust. I scrubbed that apartment until my knuckles were raw because the internet told me dust mites were the enemy. I enrolled him in school. Do you know how hard it is to enroll a child in school when you're not their legal guardian? When you don't have custody papers or a birth certificate or anything except a wheezing 10-year-old in a Spider-Man backpack? I sat in that school office for 2 hours explaining my situation to a woman named Mrs. Pratt, who finally looked at Caleb's face and said, "Fill out the forms. We'll sort the rest out later." God bless Mrs. Pratt. But money. Money was the thing that kept me up at night. My salary barely covered my own life. Now I had a growing boy who needed food, clothes, medical care, and school supplies. I picked up a second job, weekend shifts at a coffee shop called Morningside Brew. Then a third, data entry freelance work I did after Caleb went to sleep, hunched over my laptop at midnight, eyes burning. And Brooke? Brooke called every few weeks from wherever the wind had taken her. Costa Rica, Las Vegas, Austin. Always breathless, always laughing, always with an excuse wrapped in a compliment. "You're so good at this, Megan. Honestly, he's better off with you." "Brooke, I need you to come home. I need you to sign temporary guardianship papers so I can—" "Oh my God, you're so dramatic. He's with family. It's not like he's in foster care." "He needs his mother." Silence. Then, brightly, "He has you." She said it like she was giving me a gift. Like motherhood was a hand-me-down dress she didn't want anymore, and I should be grateful to wear it. My co-worker at the insurance office, a woman named Diane Reeves, 53, divorced, raised 2 boys on her own, noticed the circles under my eyes. She noticed the way I rushed out at 5 o'clock sharp, the way I ate lunch at my desk, the way I sometimes just stared at my screen without seeing it. One afternoon, she set a cup of coffee on my desk and sat down across from me. "Talk to me." So I did. I told her everything. The doorstep, the rain, the wheezing, the phone calls from paradise, the money I didn't have, the guilt I felt for resenting my own sister, the terror I felt every time Caleb's breathing got rough at night. Diane listened. She didn't interrupt. And when I finished, she said something I carry with me to this day. "Megan, you already know your answer. You've known since the first night. Would you leave that boy? Would you walk away and let him fall through the cracks? If the answer is no, and I think it is, then stop waiting for Brooke to come back and start building a life he can count on." She was right. I was waiting for Brooke to wake up, waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell me it was okay to be what Caleb already needed me to be. That night, I sat at my kitchen table after Caleb fell asleep. I opened my laptop and typed a letter, not to Brooke, to myself. Things I can control: his meals, his medication, his homework, whether he feels safe, whether he knows someone in this world chose him on purpose. Things I cannot control. Brooke, her choices, her absence, whether she ever comes back. I printed it. I taped it next to the medication schedule on the refrigerator. The next week, I filed for temporary legal guardianship. A legal aid attorney named Mr. Ochoa helped me pro bono. He said he'd seen this before, more often than people think. Brooke didn't contest it. She didn't even respond to the paperwork. That said everything, and slowly, painfully, imperfectly, something started to change. Caleb stopped flinching when I walked into the room. He started talking more at dinner. He showed me a drawing he made in art class, a house with two people standing out front. "That's us," he said, not looking up. My throat closed so tight I couldn't speak. I just nodded and put it on the refrigerator next to everything else that mattered. Have you ever stepped into a role you never asked for and realized it was the most important thing you'd ever do? That's where I was, standing in the middle of a life I hadn't planned, terrified I'd mess it up, but knowing, deep in my bones, that walking away was not an option. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but steady. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for Brooke. I wasn't hoping she'd change. I was done standing still. It was time to build. Months turned into years, and our life took shape the way all real things do. Slowly, with a lot of mess along the way. Saturday mornings became hours. I'd make pancakes. They were always burnt on the edges. Caleb would eat them anyway, grinning, dipping them in an absurd amount of syrup, telling me they were crispy, not burnt. There's a difference, Aunt Megan. We'd do homework at the kitchen table on school nights, me pretending to understand 7th grade math while he patiently explained it to me like I was the student. His teachers started sending home notes, not about problems, but about progress. Caleb is exceptionally bright. Caleb participated in class discussion today. Caleb made the honor roll. His health improved. Not overnight, not miraculously, but steadily. The air purifier helped. The consistent medication schedule helped. The fact that someone was actually taking him to every appointment helped. Dr. Nguyen, his pulmonologist, pulled me aside after a checkup when Caleb was 12 and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. His lung function has improved significantly. A stable environment makes a bigger difference than people realize." I cried in the parking lot after that. Happy tears, the kind that burn. I was still working 3 jobs. I was still tired. But the tired felt different now. It had purpose stitched into it. Diane became my anchor at work, covering for me when Caleb had appointments, bringing over casseroles on the weekends. She knew I was stretched thin. Her boys, now grown, would sometimes come by and shoot hoops with Caleb in the apartment complex parking lot. He started to have something he'd never had before, a community, a web of people who saw him, and he saw me too. That was the part I didn't expect. I was so busy making sure he was okay that I didn't notice he was watching me, learning from me. He started making his own bed without being asked. He'd leave little notes on the counter. "Thanks for the pancakes. Sorry they were burnt. Love, Caleb." He was funny, brilliantly, quietly funny. The kind of humor that sneaks up on you and makes you laugh until your sides hurt. When Caleb was 14, Brooke called from somewhere in Europe. I could hear music in the background, glasses clinking. She'd been gone 4 years. "How's my little man?" she asked, like she'd just stepped out for groceries. He made the honor roll, again. "See? I told you he'd be fine. You love playing house, Megan. Admit it." Playing house. Like this was a game. Like the 3 a.m. nebulizer treatments and the parent-teacher conferences and the nights I skipped meals so he could have seconds. Like all of that was me playing pretend. "Brooke, he asks about you sometimes. He deserves to know." Know what? That his mom needed to find herself? "Tell him I love him. Tell him I'll visit soon." She didn't visit, but here's what she did do during that call, almost as a throwaway line. "Honestly, Megan, you are now. You're his mom now, so stop acting like you need my permission." She said it casually, like tossing a coin into a fountain. But those words landed in my chest and stayed there, because she was right, even if she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I was his mom, not by biology, not by plan, by presence, by every burnt pancake and every midnight breathing treatment and every single day I chose to stay. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever been given a title you didn't ask for, only to realize it was the one that fit you best? Years passed. Caleb turned 16, 17. He joined the debate team and won regionals. He volunteered at the local clinic on weekends. He maintained a near-perfect GPA while managing his own health with a maturity that made me ache with pride. And then, Stanford. A full academic scholarship to Stanford University. When the letter came, I read it 3 times because I didn't believe it. Caleb was standing in the kitchen watching me, trying to look casual but vibrating with barely contained joy. I looked up at him, this tall, brilliant young man who'd once stood on my doorstep wheezing in the rain. And I dropped the letter and hugged him so hard he laughed. "You did it," I whispered. "You did it, Caleb." "We did it," he said, and he meant it. But news travels, and glory attracts people who disappeared when the work was hard. Brooke found out, of course she did, and suddenly, after years of silence, my phone lit up. "Oh my God, Megan, I'm so proud of him. I need to be there for this. I'm his mother. I should be there when he announces it." She wanted the photo. She wanted the moment. She wanted to stand next to her son at his proudest hour and pretend the last 7 years hadn't happened. I said no. This isn't your moment to claim, Brooke. You weren't here for the work. You don't get to show up for the trophy. She called me selfish. She called me bitter. She said I had stolen her son. And then she hung up. Knowing Brooke was out there, spinning the narrative, rewriting history, calling herself a victim, it should have made me furious. Instead, it felt like watching weather happen to someone else, distant, irrelevant, because the only opinion that mattered was Caleb's, and Caleb already knew the truth. I wondered if she'd ever truly understand what she'd lost, or if that was the saddest part of all. Caleb thrived at Stanford. He called every Sunday. He sent photos of campus, of study groups, of the ocean. He texted me memes that made no sense and recipes he wanted to try when he came home for break. Home. He called my apartment home. He graduated with honors, got a job at a biotech company in San Francisco, started building a life of his own, and the first thing he did with his first real paycheck, the very first thing, was send me a set of car keys. "Check the parking lot," his text said. I walked outside in my slippers and found a silver Honda Civic with a bow on it. Not new, not flashy, but reliable. Safe. The kind of car that starts every morning without begging. There was a note on the dashboard in his handwriting. "For every time you drove me to the clinic in that car that shook at 40 miles per hour, you deserve something that doesn't shake. Love, Caleb." I sat in that car and sobbed for 20 minutes. He came home for Thanksgiving that year and brought his girlfriend, a young woman named Priya, who was warm and smart and looked at Caleb like he hung the moon. When he introduced me, he didn't say, "my aunt." He said, "This is the person who raised me. This is my family." Priya hugged me like she already knew the whole story. Maybe she did. Life settled into something I never thought I'd have. Peace. Real, earned, ordinary peace. I still worked at the insurance office. Diane had retired, but we had lunch every other week. I'd redecorated the apartment. Caleb's old room was still his. I kept it ready, always. But the rest of the space finally felt like mine. I'd started gardening on the balcony. Small things, herbs and tomatoes. Life growing where there used to be just survival. And then, on a Tuesday evening in March, it rained. I heard the knock before I saw her. I opened the door, and there was Brooke. 37 now, thinner than I remembered, mascara running, suitcase at her feet. Drenched. She looked like a photograph left out in the weather. Still recognizable, but faded. Worn. "Megan," she said, "I need to come home." My chest tightened. Old instincts, the ones that told me to open the door wider, to fix it, to save her, surged up from somewhere deep and familiar. But I breathed through it. I'd learned how to do that. "What happened?" I asked. I didn't step aside. The story came out in pieces. Derek was long gone. There had been others after him. The money ran out. The adventures stopped being adventures and became running. She'd been living in a motel in Knoxville for 3 months. She was broke, she was tired, and she needed, to see her son. "I'm his mother, Megan. I know I messed up, but I'm still his mother. I have a right to—" "You have a right to nothing," I said, not cruelly, calmly, the way you state a fact. "You left him on my doorstep when he was 10 years old and wheezing. You didn't come back. You didn't call for months at a time. You didn't sign the school forms. You didn't hold him when he couldn't breathe. You chose yourself, every single time, and that was your right too. But you don't get to unchoose the consequences." Her face crumbled. "I was drowning, Megan. I didn't know how to be a mother. Neither did I. I learned, because he needed me to." She stood there, rain dripping off her chin, and for a moment I saw her, really saw her. Not the villain of my story, just a broken woman who had run from something she couldn't face and kept running until there was nowhere left to go. I felt something I didn't expect. Not anger, not triumph. Sadness. A heavy, quiet sadness for the version of our lives that could have been. "I can help you find a shelter," I said, "and a counselor. There are programs. I'll make some calls." "I don't want a shelter. I want my family back." "Then earn it. But you start with yourself, Brooke, not with him. He's not your second chance. He's a person, and he gets to decide who's in his life." She left that night. I gave her a dry coat, $200 I couldn't really spare, and the number for a women's resource center. She took it all without looking at me. Caleb called the next day. Brooke had found his number somehow. He told me about the conversation with the same calm steadiness he'd carried since he was a boy. She said she wanted to be my mom again. "What did you say?" I told her the truth, that I already have one, that you saved me, and that she's a stranger, Aunt Megan. I don't say that to be mean. I say it because it's what's real. My eyes burned. "You don't owe her cruelty, but you don't owe her a role she abandoned either." "I know. You taught me that." A year later, Caleb married Priya. Small ceremony. Garden venue outside of San Francisco. Fairy lights in the trees. The kind of wedding that feels like a warm room. He gave a speech at the reception. I wasn't prepared for it. Nobody warned me. He stood up, glass in hand, and looked right at me. "Most people thank their parents at their wedding," he said. "So I want to thank mine. Not the one who gave birth to me. I wish her well, wherever she is. But the one who raised me, the one who slept on a couch for 2 years so I could have a bedroom, the one who worked 3 jobs and learned my medication schedule and made the worst pancakes in human history every single Saturday." The room laughed. I couldn't see through my tears. "Aunt Megan, no. Mom, you didn't have to stay. You didn't have to choose me. But you did. Every single day you chose me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that. I love you." The room stood. I couldn't stand. I just sat there, hands over my mouth, shaking, while this man, this extraordinary man, called me the word I never dared to claim. Mom. So after everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with a sister asking you to forget the years of absence, to hand back the title she threw away, would you open the door and call it forgiveness? Or would you hold your ground and call it love? Because here's what I've learned. Real motherhood, real love, real family isn't biology. It isn't obligation. It isn't guilt. It's staying. It's showing up when it's hard. It's burnt pancakes and midnight breathing treatments and choosing someone every single day, even when no one's watching. Even when no one thanks you. Especially then. I was never a stand-in. I was never playing house. I was building one. Board by board, day by day, love by love. And it's the most real thing I've ever done. And that's where Megan's story ends. But let me ask you something before you scroll away. Brooke had every chance, every opportunity, every open door, and she walked away from all of them, walked away from her own son, because she thought freedom meant running. She didn't realize that the real prison was the life she built without him in it. And Megan? Megan never asked to be a mother. She never planned it. She never prepared for it. But when that little boy showed up on her doorstep, wheezing in the rain, she did the one thing Brooke never could. She stayed. And that made all the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, who is your Megan? Who is that one person in your life who didn't have to stay but chose to? Who showed up when everyone else disappeared? Give them their flowers right here, right now, in this comment section. Tag them if you can. Let them know they mattered. And if you are someone's Megan, if you're the one holding it all together right now, exhausted, unappreciated, wondering if anyone even notices, hear me when I say this. They notice. It matters. You matter. Don't you dare stop. If this story hit you, and I mean really hit you, do me a favor. Smash that like button so hard your screen feels it. That like isn't just a number to me. It tells me these stories are reaching the right people. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss a story. We drop new ones every single week, and trust me, the next one, it's going to leave you speechless. Go ahead, drop that comment. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong, stay kind, and never forget, real love isn't loud. It's consistent. This has been Untold Revenge Files.